Video for practice, promotion, and profit. Having started at my company, Courage, and doing pitches to investors, angel investors on a big stage, there's a lot of learning to do there. And when I came to the Toastmasters groups, what I learned is I really like the learning style. You get feedback from people almost immediately about how you can improve. And I also learned that for many of us to give a presentation on a stage or in real person, kind of few and far in between. However, the internet opens up an awful lot of options for us to be able to distribute our message with YouTube or a website. And I felt like that was an area that I could enhance Toastmasters teaching on public speaking with a video experience. So we created this group called the Northern Colorado Video Creators Group. Now when we started out, it was primarily for practice. Now we were videoing our speeches at the Noonshiners group, and that was a great learning style, right? You get a chance to see yourself on screen for the first time. It's amazing what you learn about your presentation style when you get to see yourself. So we took that back to a separate group and wanted to still have that learning environment. And it was for practice. And in fact, what we did is we would set up 2 speakers each evening. You would do your presentation on video, and then you would play it back with everybody there on a big screen TV, and you could point out what you were doing with your hands and what you're doing with your voice and things like that, just like right away. And the nice thing about video is you just do another shoot. And over the course of 3 or 4 shoots in one evening, a person would go from here to here. It's a really amazing tool to improve your speaking skills, whether they're for video or for just practice. Now as we started publicizing this as a mastermind video meetup group, what we found is other people not in Toastmasters were drawn to the group. People that were interested in promoting their business. We have people that are healthcare practitioners, lawyers, people that have a website and maybe have a very active blog, but people these days want video. They want this instant gratification that video gives them, and they wanted to convert their content on their website or other place into video. So the group started evolving towards promoting your own company or yourself. Because rather than having a static picture of you on the home page, people would much rather be able to click on a video and see you. And then we took some more evolutionary steps from practice and promotion to actually profit. And now I'm collaborating with a man who has done management training. This curriculum was invented for West Point. And now I'm working with him on a business deal to provide those videos online as a subscription service, like $9.95 a month, and I get a royalty on that. So it's turned from this practice to promote and now to a profitable business for me. So what we'd like to do today is provide you some of the tools that we've learned over the last 2 years, and you can see which of those tools you might be able to use in practice, promoting, or perhaps providing an income stream for yourself. Because I'm self-learned, right? We just kind of started this thing on a whim, trying to practice, and we've evolved over time. So what we've done is we split this into 2 different major sections. One is the gadgets or the equipment that you might want to be able to use in your own either promoting, practice, or profit. And then the other part is when you're in front of the screen. What are some of the things that we've learned working with a lot of people that make an effective video presentation when you're in front of the camera instead of behind it? The other thing I'll mention is that when we started this, it was really low budget. I'm a do-it-yourselfer, and we built things. I mean, Rheid built one of our teleprompters. I don't know if they'll sell for $1,000 or $2,000, but he just showed up one Monday night with a teleprompter for our group to use. So it's a real blessing, but the group has kind of been organically grown and do-it-yourselfers. So neither of us really has professional training on any of the stuff we're going to talk about, but I think it's very practical. And it's been hands-on, nuts and bolts sort of things that we've learned. And then the other thing I'd mention is that, over the last 2 years, I've kind of acquired a lot of this stuff. We transported all this stuff from the Moose Studio, which is my basement, to here. And we loaded up Rheid's SUV with just about everything we could pack in there. And I don't know if you're more of a gadget guy than I am, but between the two of us, we've accumulated a fair number of things.
Electronics.
Electronics and microphones and all sorts of interesting stuff. I got caught last night because over the course of the 2 years, I've been buying little bits and pieces from Amazon and bringing it down to the studio, but I couldn't help Rheid pack it up very much last night, so my wife Karen was helping. She goes, "Where did that come from?" And more and more and more stuff was exposed that it hadn't been before. But we've learned a lot.
And I must admit, I was there. And she did say, "Wow, I didn't know you had this." And Gordon just kind of laughed and said, "Yeah." And I've been in that same boat. It's a bug, or an addiction, or something. Videoaholics Anonymous, or not. So.
Well, if you'll take it from here and just stop talking about some of the things that we've learned about equipment.
Welcome to the Moose Studio mobile unit. Because that's what this is. This is what typically is in Gordon's basement when we show up on Monday nights. For me, I can tell you, every time I'm breaking down my equipment after I do a video shoot, someone will come up and they'll ask the question. But the question is, what equipment should I buy? Well, let me ask you this. What car should I buy? Right? A what?
What works for you? What meets your needs?
What meets my needs? Or what do I really want to do with it? I can tell you that the answer is not clear-cut. And the options that you have, if you're really in the mode that you want to video yourself, that you have a lot of different options, and some of them are not quite clear. For example, if you're wanting just to practice, these little flip cameras that came out, they're pretty awesome. And they can give you some good feed, you know, to actually watch it and say, well, I didn't know that I'd keep my pocket in my hand all the time. Or cell phones, iPads, tablets, all of those, they will give you really good quality in many cases because camera optics have become so good. It's amazing to see what can come off of a tablet, even a webcam. The challenge, though, comes when you start taking it to the next level. So I have 4 questions here that we'll quickly go through just to answer the question of what type of equipment should I buy. In this case, let's talk about the camera. What quality of video do you want? Do you really want to watch yourself in poor quality audio and video? It's hard enough watching yourself without having something that's, well, maybe it would be easier for you just to say that, that's so blurry, I don't know what I'm doing. But in this case, video quality has reached a point that is very inexpensive. Video is omnipresent. If you don't believe that, just watch the news. Some of the feeds that the news gets are from cell phones and from people just passing by with their iPad going, look, wow, look. So that video quality is really accelerated and it's really good. However, there's a point that if you want high quality, if you're taking it from just the practice to promotion, would you want to promote yourself if it's fuzzy or blurry? No, probably not. You want to make that step up. So, for example, this Nikon DSLR that's here, it's recording at 16.3 megapixels. Whereas this little Canon video camera, it's actually at 3.2. And there's a couple of things that you should know. If you really want dense and colorful images, this camera that's set up for photography, it has a bigger sensor. When I say bigger, it's relative. This one is like a stamp size. This one over here is about the size of the end of your pinky. But the difference is the density of those pixels. This one is about 4,500 by 3,900 pixels. This one over here, it's actually closer to your video, your high-def video, which is 1920 by 1080. So the difference in those two processors is quite a bit different. The density, though, is very important because you still get the richer quality from the DSLR. But there's some drawbacks. If you just wanted really good quality, then you could say, well, I'll go buy me an expensive Nikon. But that's not the answer in every case. The next question is, how long do you actually want to record video at one time? If you're anticipating recording just a 5 to 7 minute speech at Toastmasters, the DSLR will actually do that. But if you're trying to record a whole presentation, 45 minutes or longer, then you've got some different challenges. Most DSLR cameras have a limit. They'll say from 15 to 18, sometimes 22 minutes is the maximum recording time that you get on a DSLR camera. The challenge is your speaker typically doesn't stop. Excuse me, let's stop and I will restart my recording. If you are the one that just set it up in the back and trying to capture yourself, it doesn't tell you when it goes off. It just goes, it stops recording. Take this camera, though, the Canon that is made for video, it will actually record forever. If you have 2 slots in it, you can actually trade those SIM cards. They give you the capability to record for a long time. Just with one card, in this case, at high def, I can record for 4 hours straight. And what this camera does is it will splice up your actual video into multiple files. There's some differences that transpire with the cameras as well to keep in mind, but remember if you are doing what I do, I set up a camera in the back of our Toastmaster meeting and just let it run the whole meeting. The video camera works great for that. Now there is a difference as well for quality on the Nikon. Even though you get the richness, this Nikon has to do compression. Because it's now saying, oh, I'm in video mode, I can only record at that lower resolution. Everything else I basically have to scrap. And then I have to condense it and compress it. So there's some issues that come around because of that. So it's not just what camera is the best quality. Now you've got to ask yourself, what am I going to use it for? The next one is, what speaking environments are you going to be in? If you speak in auditoriums, and the only place that camera can be set is 100 miles at the back of the auditorium, that little camera is going to have a hard time. It'll be about this big on your image. However, the Nikon and DSLRs in general have the capability to interchange different lenses. We have a couple of those that we can show you how that works, but that gives you the capability to use telephoto lenses or wide angle. In the case of if you're in a conference room and you don't have a wide angle, all you see is your nose because the camera placement is so close. Whereas a wide angle will give you that broad view and actually help you with that. The last one is, how much do you want to spend? Is money no object here? It never is. So I can tell you that there are cost differences, but the cost for video cameras and technology itself has dropped, quite significantly. This little camera over here runs you about $300. You can get even cheaper than that if you don't want some of the features that are on that one. That camera has the capability to run it from a tablet. So you could actually set it and just start and stop from the podium if you want to do it. I've done it. There's some limitations though. It only works in programming mode or automatic mode. We'll show you why that's an important thing not to do. This camera here runs you about $1,200 to $1,500 or more, depending on how many lenses and things that you want to add to it. But let me give you one last caveat. The DSLRs, I don't know why they haven't done it, but they don't put power on many of them. You actually are at the mercy of a power pack or rechargeable batteries. That in itself is one of the limiting factors, and with that processor having to work a lot faster, I can tell you that I get about 38 minutes out of the power pack on this night. So those are some of the reasons you would make selections of different cameras. To help you out, there's a little grid, and it's actually on your handout. If you're looking at practice only, we have lots of different things that can help you with practicing. The challenge is if you take it to the next step, or if you want to actually see your expressions from the back of the room. All of those are really key to making your decision. And what you do at each level gets a little bit more expensive. I can tell you, if you're looking at profit and promotion, semi-professional equipment that is out there is extremely, extremely good. In fact, a video camera by Canon that I am drooling over is an XA20. It gives you the capability to have interchangeable lenses, but it also gives you that unlimited length of time for recording, all of those things, plus pro audio stuff that comes into it. So let me go to the next step here and just say, these are 5 features that you absolutely want in no matter with whatever camera you're going to be purchasing when you take it from just practice to promotion. External sound input, what you see in front of you is actually using external sound. And we're going to play a couple of little clips to give you some ideas why this is the case. Being able to set the audio as an input level is another important thing. White balance, we'll show you some good examples why auto sets really cause problems. The ability to turn autofocus, we've got some great footage of that. You could say we've had tons of experience in the professional arena, haven't we? Because we've learned by making mistakes. And the last one is being able to set aperture settings. Those are all key things, especially if you are a presenter or in a speaking environment, because of some of the things you'll see in our videos. So I'm going to show the first one. You almost feel like a politician speaking out about freedom and liberty. So these are DSLRs with just the internal mics. And the last one is actually with external. I almost feel like a politician speaking out about freedom and liberty. After cooking hamburgers, I feel like I'm giving a stump speech. So you can tell quite a difference from those audio inputs. Can you tell what's happening on this one? This is autofocus on a DSLR. And that camera is actually trying to figure out what it should be focusing on. And the flag in the back was actually making it reset.
Doing your parallel and did people on the weekend.
See if you can figure out what's wrong with this one.
And then workshop, that's what I think is the evolution, because then you get to share with people.
It's a little bit harder to see on the big screen, but every time she moves her hand,
presentation, but I think it still will help.
this one is pretty
So with
obvious.
that, oops.
Did you see what happened?
Just to confirm.
This is auto white balance on. So as soon as she turned on the overhead projector, everything goes dark. And this is taking a camera that was set for white balance in another room and shooting it in another one. Do you see the difference in the quality? The whites are now white instead of pinks and oranges in the previous one.
So automatic is not necessarily the right choice. In fact, when I did the pitch for Shark Tank, they had to send in the video, and my wife and I, Karen, were doing it at a booth, and one of those trade show booths. We were doing the product demo that we were going to be on Shark Tank with. And I had to automatically track people. So as we moved and did the demonstration, the camera kept us dead center, but it made the booth look like it was moving. Like it was in air, space, The booth was moving, but we were standing stone. So a camera that has everything automatic is not necessarily what you will want to use for your shoots for promotion. Let me start talking just a little bit about the next step. You know, when people are watching your video on their computer, the research says that they're doing other things at the same time. They're maybe looking at the video, but they're listening. And they're probably doing email and some other things too. So the audio is actually more important than the video specs that get a lot of publicity. And so we've really revamped the way that we prioritize the stuff that we do from the video is really darn good with either of these cameras, but the audio is where the rubber meets the road. Well, then making the next transition into the audio section of the whole deal, we have found, and this is Rheid's and my preference, is to use an external digital microphone for your audio. And here's a great example here, the one that, this is a Tascam.
That's a Zoom.
That's a Zoom, this is also Zoom. But because they record the digital completely separate of your audio channel in your video camera, you'll get a really nice, clean noise floor. It won't have a lot of hiss, and it has a full fidelity of your voice. So these aren't that expensive, but what you have to do then is you've got your video being recorded on the camera, and your audio is being recorded here. And that's why you have a clapboard.
That's right.
At the beginning of your shoot, you glue the clap, okay? And then when you use your editing software, you will see a spike in your audio waveform right at that point. And that's how you sync your video to your audio. You get the advantage of a high-quality digital audio recorder without having to try to fix it with audio processing of this noisy stuff that's coming out of your camera. You could even do something like this. These are little digital audio recorders. Put a little lapel microphone on it. Put it in your pocket if you're wandering around. So there's a lot of good choices on that. That's really our choice, is to have a lapel mic. That would be the next choice. If you're going to go wireless, then I believe that the lapel mics are better. Now the disadvantage of this is if I move my head like this, you might have noticed that at some of the speakers today, it goes down, right? Because they're moving away. And so the over-the-ear microphones, Rheid, if you bring that one, sometimes those, yeah, like these kind of things that clip over the ear, these are great, right? They're a little cumbersome to put on, but they're absolutely perfect video audio quality. And if you're moving around in an auditorium, I recommend this. But even these over the head work well. You know, your pastors at your churches will wear things like that because you just don't want to lose that audio quality. So I really like the over-the-ear stuff. They're a little hard to put on, but the audio quality's hot, right on. The last thing on the microphones is a shotgun mic. Now, the problem with those other mics is you can kind of see this one, right? And a lot of the people today, you notice that it was rubbing against their tie. You got that scratching noise. It's really hard to avoid that with a lapel microphone. What we like is the boom, the shotgun mic, which you see on the boom back there. Now what a shotgun mic does is it funnels all of the sound in a very directional area. So what we do is normally have a boom mic. We have a person doing a standing configuration. We'll have the boom mic up there pointing to their voice. You get the advantage of isolation of their voice, no noise, and you don't have to wear something.
What's the variety in terms of cost?
That is a good point.
That's a really good point. So these wireless mics, what did you do for your wireless lapels?
Mine was about $300 a mic. Some of them are cheaper. $150 will give you a good wireless setup. And again, some of it is the features that you want. In Pro Audio, one of the things I wanted was to be able to use it at a facility that had a mixer board. So the XLR connector, these larger connectors that you've seen with audio equipment, some of them are just the little 1/4-inch RCA jacks. So you have a number of different options.
Well, and then I'm the do-it-yourselfer guy.
I'm sorry?
Do you plug the mics into the camera? So
Yeah,
you
in fact,
have
this
to do that?
we have a setup up here that actually shows you how to plug into this DSLR that you'll be able to look at as well. Afterwards, we want you to come interact with us and interact with the teleprompter, actually do a video shoot if you want. Those are things that we'd like you just to get a feel for. So the audio, the headset up here, if you want to hear the difference, come up and put the headphones on and just hear what that little mixer does.
So on that shotgun mic, if you're moving around, you have to have somebody there moving it.
Yes,
They're
you
working
do.
the room.
No, I'm going to
Well-
actually use that as a segue to something that's pretty important that I didn't talk about originally, which is in Toastmasters, we're kind of taught, you move around, you know, move. Don't do that with a video shoot. At least in our studio, we don't have somebody moving you. We want to stay in front of a green screen or a backdrop that's fairly fixed. So you need to learn different skills for staying in place. Hand motions, location of your hands, those kinds of things that may be a little different than what you would learn for a live presentation. So most of our stuff is done in a fixed location, and you're right, the shotgun mic then, pretty much we need you to stay within a 2 or 3 foot set area.
The lapel mics or lavaliers, they're omnidirectional. So they actually will pick up a lot more sound. So if we were talking together and we only had one mic, if I was here and Gordon was talking to me, it would do a good job of picking up that sound as well. So there are different patterns. This little zoom that I have actually has 3 different settings. One that it acts like it's a shotgun. It has a very small focus, but then you can actually expand it so that it'll pick up a fan of 45, 90 degrees. So there are different options for your mic, what you're going to be using them for.
Do you like they're moving to Bluetooth connection with these mics now, so you don't have the wires? Are you a fan of those or not a fan?
I will strongly vote against those because Bluetooth has about 100 or 200 millisecond delay. So if you see my voice moving, the audio is going to be delayed by that much.
Yep. So for me, my preference is actually wired because it will give you the best and rich quality that you want. But the wireless mics are really good. We haven't found any Bluetooth that will work. You'll actually have to make those adjustments, and
You
don't
can fix
have to
almost
at all.
everything digitally later on, but you don't want to have to hassle with something like that.
You'll spend 3 to 1 on post-processing your audio, video clips compared to the shoot.
With Bluetooth.
Just in general, if you're trying to clean up the audio or make fixes and things like that.
So the best thing is get the good mic and get the good connection and save time up front.
That would be my recommendation. Yeah.
That's a good summary.
I have a
That's hard
couple
to
of
do,
videos.
yeah.
Should we show them
Okay,
real
yeah,
quick?
let's do that.
He's my warm-up act. This is great.
This is a white balance issue. Here's a DSLR.
He's my warm-up act. This is great. Gets you warmed up before I get started.
We good?
Try it one more time. This is with external
Once upon a
audio.
time in a small village.
So can you see the difference between that external mic and the internal? Much richer sound. You can actually make it very present. In this case, the woman had a wireless lapel mic on. Sounded like she was right there in it.
So when you're doing a mic like that and you're trying to record and also work over a PA system, can you get a mic that does both things, or do you have to have 2 mics?
So it's a good question. You typically would have to use 2 mics unless you have a device that can plug in to that mixing unit. And that's why I purchased this Zoom, because I have the capability to do that. Some of you might recognize this person on this one. Tell us what's wrong with this mic, or this set.
Whee, Lordy, it is a beautiful day outside today, and I'm happy to be here. My name is George Beck, and I own a nice little ranch back up against the base of the Bighorn.
Notice when we caught how hot
And
it was
on that ranch,
to bring it
I
down.
raise Texas Longhorns.
This one I hope we can hear.
This is where we're really.
You can barely hear it with these speakers. Can you hear the hiss?
Oh, yeah, yes, pretty.
So they're overgained. So that means you need to back off on that and move your mics closer to your person.
For us to be both embracing it and giving it.
The other thing about many cameras will have auto gain on your audio is when nothing's happening, it's high gain. And as soon as they start speaking, it adjusts, right? So at the beginning of your audio, it's going to be and then it'll go down like this, and that's really hard to digitally compensate for. So that's why we recommend using a manual audio setting ahead of time. That's why you do the sound check, so you don't get that whooshing sound.
So someone has to be manipulating the same?
Well, you set it up on the camera ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just look at the little view meters that they have in the camera and set it 2/3 or so.
Most of them
So
have
you need to
a
do
green,
sound
yellow,
check
and red
before.
check.
Oh, yes. Do the sound
Yes,
check
you always
before.
want to do that. And you want to actually set your white balance beforehand as well.
And that's what Rheid was doing at the beginning here. I was holding up this. Is white. It's full spectrum white. So you hold that in front of the camera, and the camera electronics can say, this is white. And it'll adjust its settings for that. If you have it pointing to something like that, it tries to figure out, well, what is white? Well, I'm not exactly sure. And it oftentimes doesn't do a very good job. And it depends on the kind of lighting. If it's tungsten or fluorescent lighting, it'll do something worse. So your flesh tones look pretty bad. Any sort of color accuracy is shot if you don't use manual white balance with a target that is white.
So one of the challenges with audio is filming outside. And this one will give you an idea of wind noise from an external.
That's actually, I mean, really your body is always detoxifying because things even like lactic acid. So, you know, your body's natural production.
The next segment is actually
The first thing
this
I want to
unit
talk about
acting as
is
a
why
more
gut health is
socket.
so important. Because we ignore our guts
Nope.
a lot.
In this case,
We
there was no
ignore
windscreen.
The way our
So it
stomach feels.
automatically
We
did
ignore
some of the
the way it
processing of
feels
clipping
here.
some of the height
And I want to
pieces
change
and-
that.
The last one is misplacement, and lavalier mics, they have a problem. You heard it today on stage when they went and hugged. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, you heard that. The other is padding, or it's just misplaced. This is one of my favorite, and you'll hear why.
1,660,032 inches.
Notice how it increases.
136,034 feet. 34.17 kilometers. 26.2 miles.
She is alive. When I got this video afterwards and I started editing it, I just had to smile. This was her first contest speech that she had given. Now there's a couple of things. First is that she had clipped it onto her sweater. So she was getting scratching noise because her sweater was moving very easily. But the other was the mic was directed right at her. And so it was actually sitting on her blouse, pointing to her heart. And you could tell that she was nervous. So one of my favorite bloopers, if you will, are clips from, but shows you the difference, the challenges that you can have with some of our mics.
Well, let's move on to the stuff when you're in front of the camera. It's easy to really get stuck in the technology side, but we'll make this point later on. It's your personal presence on the camera that's more important than the technology. So we've come up with a variety of things that we've learned when you're in front of the camera. The first thing is, how would you want to set up your studio? So we have green screens where you can use chroma key replacement to put a picture of the aspen trees or something like that later on with your video editing software. We have a black screen and a white screen, and yesterday I bought a tie-dye screen for $20. So it gives you a variety of what you want to do, but your clothing should match what you want to wear, what you want for the background. Okay, so green screen, you don't want to wear green, right? Because it'll block you out just like it did the green. So you want to avoid anything if you're using the green screen that has any semblance of green. And it's actually interesting, ladies will wear jewelry that have some green in it, not realizing that. So we have to get that out because otherwise the jewelry is going to shine right through the background. So just be aware that your clothing needs to match the background. If you're doing a black background, I don't want to wear a black jacket. I'll just kind of blend into the black. And if you're wearing if you're doing a white background, try to avoid cream and white because you're just going to blend in. And I'll make a second point about white is that it's horrible for the cameras. So just avoid white altogether.
In fact, if you're a good photographer, you can deal with it. But if you're like us, boy, it makes life hard.
In what way?
It just throws off any of the programming of the camera. If you set your white balance and do everything manual, that's your best option.
So a white shirt with a blue suit would be bad?
Well, let me
No.
keep going.
Yeah, go
So then we found that solid colors like this are really good with a black background or anything like that. You know, Rheid's shirt would be very nicely done. What you don't want to do is anything that has patterns,
Especially lines.
lines. When you compress this and show it on YouTube, it's going to be ugly. It'll start doing weird stuff to the eyes.
They call it moire effect.
Moire effects, because you're digitizing an analog signal and it just gets really awful. Now, the other thing for guys is your ties. So you don't want to, this tie is probably okay. Broad stripes, right? This one, not so much. I would stay away from
What
anything
you'll
that
see
has
is
side
it will
details.
actually take on some different colors and act like it's moving. Maybe you've seen that in somebody doing a presentation and they put it on a big screen, or they actually shoot it with a high def and put it on TV that's not high def. That's where you'll see
So be
it.
careful about anything that has a lot of fine lines.
So you're.
And you have an example of that with the...
I do. We don't have time to show that video, but in this case, it's actually the lines of the house that give that effect because of the compression. So it's not just your clothing. Just know that your background or what you're shooting at can actually cause that effect as well.
Another thing to notice is that, you know, computer monitors are not very accurate for color. They vary all over the map, so if you're doing something that has a lot of skin exposed, you may not be very happy with the way that turns out. And for us guys that maybe have bald hair or shiny skin, go ahead and put some powder on, because you get in front of these brighter lights, makeup or something like that will knock off that shininess that you don't want. If you're wearing glasses, you know, that light will cause a reflection off your glasses. So if you don't have to wear glasses, I would recommend not. We can turn off that light and just do the side lighting if you need to wear the glasses. But it's another thing that you want to consider when you're choosing your clothing.
Audio, real quick.
Which part?
Something that you want to do when you're in front of the camera. So we've talked a lot about the equipment and being behind the camera. When you're in front of the camera, when you start, smile and hold that smile for 2 seconds. And when you end, don't be like us Toastmasters in clubs, that we're saying thank you very much as we walk off stage. Because you want to give that 2 seconds at the end. That helps you with editing. Another aspect is about retakes. And because video is...
Before you go to that, I
You want to do one
make
more?
a few more comments, which is those microphones are darn sensitive.
That's right.
And, you know, in a live environment, you can kind of get away with some of these kinds of things. My, oh my, they will really show up. So drink the water ahead of time. Be conscious of any kind of those little clicky things that you might do, and have other people do that pre-screening for you. And the other thing I would want to mention is that when you're doing a still, your hand location is really important. So we tend to want to have your elbows above the framing of it. If you go something like this and then you bring your hands back up, it looks odd. Your hands are like appearing out of nowhere. So practice ahead of time what you like to do with your hands. Some people do this, that's not so good. Definitely don't do this, any kind of a clenched fist kind of a thing. Stay away from that. You see most people will have an open hand sort of a movement. A lot of this, don't do this. What happens when you do that into a camera lens, the hands get bigger. So now, well, if you really want to make an impact, you know, that will do it. The fist is going to look like this big when it's really supposed to be about this big. It's just the way the lenses work. So
that'd be good for like showing a fish.
If you were trying to demonstrate a fish caught, there you go. Your fish is this small, but when you want to...
This is the fish that I caught, yeah. And the other thing I find is that oftentimes I tend to rock. I don't know if it's from when I was raising my babies, but if I'm in front of the camera, I tend to go like this. Not good. So I use a stool. I'll most often sit on a stool to kind of keep my butt plastered and move my feet like this. For men, this is especially more better. Better. It looks better on the screen to have a man with the shoulders at about a 45-degree angle. And then when you make a transition in your presentation, go like this. Like we do in Toastmasters, where you might move to a different place on the stage. You can't do that here, but if you just do this, and then do this, it's a nice tool for getting that transition, but not violating the kind of the conventions of video.
So we've included a lot of material on your handouts, a lot of suggestions that we have found have been helpful. We wanted to give you the chance to actually stand in front of a teleprompter and try using the teleprompter. My first night at the Moose studio was trying to use a teleprompter, and I can tell you that it's unnatural, you fight it, and it is just really hard. At first I thought it was kind of demoralizing. It was like, man, I can't even talk. So if you see someone giving a newscast on TV, you can tell that they've done this for a long time. But after 2 or 3 times, you'll get to the point that you pick up on it, and then you realize that you sound canned. And so the best option is to use cue cards or a little whiteboard or something like that to give you your outline and tell your story. So we'll give you the chance to stand in front of a teleprompter, see how that works. Just as one item that you need to know, when you're doing video, if you screw up, just stop. Don't move, don't do anything, and just start over at the start of the sentence where you messed up. We'll show you a quick little video on green screen, and you can see where I make that mess up. But I did a simple edit to this to show you how simple it is to take that mess up out. So we'll show you that, Gordon, then you'll conclude, and then we'll be done. They really speak your speak. Well, sorry, Bob. Sorry, Tom, that doesn't work for me. Well, Wednesday doesn't? Well, I wish it would, because I think you'd like these guys. They really speak your speak. Sorry, Tom, that doesn't work for me. Well, Wednesday doesn't? Well, I wish it would, because I think you'd like these guys. That only took just a matter of about 2 minutes to find the right place in the editing tool to make it happen.
So there's a lot of advantages to using audio and all of this technology, but the point I really want to drive home, and one of the speakers said it earlier, which is authenticity is going to trump the technology. Authenticity is going to trump technology. You can have the best equipment in the world, but if your viewers on YouTube see you as being unauthentic, you know, you're kind of contrived, you're not relaxed, it's not going to do well. No matter how good the video quality, no matter how good the audio quality is, you want to be you. And the best way that I know to do that is to practice. You know, do the kind of things like we do in our mastermind. You just do it over and over and over again, and you become you in front of a camera instead of trying to force it. And the last point about that is if you are doing if you're a business like a CEO and you want to do a professionally produced video, and you think you're going to walk into a studio like this, like I did one time, and you're getting charged $200 an hour, and you haven't practiced being in front of a camera before, you're going to waste a lot of people's time. But by just doing it yourself, practice ahead of time, you'll get all of that stuff out of the way, and so you show up at the professional's studio, knock it out, you know, and you get it done in a half an hour instead of 2 hours of a lot of people going, come on, get it together, you know, you're the CEO of the company, haven't you figured out how to do video? And no, it doesn't come natural. It's something you have to work at and practice, and it's a little bit different in video format than it is in a Toastmasters environment.
Wonderful.
Okay.